This edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Squarespace. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. For 10% off your first purchase, use the discount code MacVoices11. Hi, I'm Chuck Joyner and this is MacVoices. If you're a MacVoices regular, you'll remember a few weeks ago that VIPOrbit CEO and co-founder Mike Muhney offered MacVoices listeners and viewers a private webinar on how to get up and running and get more out of VIPOrbit, the contact manager that is a whole lot more than a contact manager. Well, Mike made good on his promise and we had the webinar, but unfortunately, time zones being what they are, we couldn't accommodate everyone who wanted to attend, because in some places, 4 in the morning is 4 in the afternoon. So Mike agreed to let me share this webinar with all of you to find out more about the Contact Manager, what it can do, and see if it's right for you. What I would encourage you to do is go over to VIPOrbit right now, VIPOrbit.com, download a copy of the demo version of VIPOrbit so that you can follow along with Mike and see where everything is, how you get information in, and what it can do for you. I think that's the best way to get the most out of this webinar. And of course, if you have questions on VIPOrbit or the webinar, send me an email at chuck@macvoices.com. I'll send them on to Mike and we'll do our best to get answers for you. So, without further ado, here's Mike, and I'll say thanks for watching.
So let's begin with the Mac version. But before I do want to lay a little bit of a groundwork. So for those of you that may not know who I am the co-inventor of ACT software and was the co-founder of the company. And ACT literally created the entire contact management category and industry, as well as acknowledged as the catalyst that started the CRM, customer relationship management industry. So what is a contact manager? Very simply, it's software designed for people who deal with people. And who doesn't deal with people? Your net worth ultimately is directly tied to your network. And so what's important is, how are you managing your network of people, of relationships? Whether they be personal or business, it really matters not. What's important is that you are on top of your game and you are distinguishing yourself from your competition. And we all have competition. So what's important is to have what I like to call an on-demand, instant recall, photographic memory, executive assistant capability via VIPOrbit. So that's just to give you a little bit of philosophy or insight, if you will, as to what is the value proposition of this. I like to also say that life is a contact sport. What's your score? And we all have a score based on how successful or not that we feel we are or are not, based on where we would like to be. There's always a measurement in play in our lives. And so given that life is a contact sport, VIPOrbit addresses every aspect of your life, your contacts, your calendar, and your communications. So let's begin with the product itself. And again, feel free to type in a message, and if it's appropriate for me to answer the question during the presentation as opposed to the end, I will do so, or I'll defer that till the end if Carrie hands one to me. So this is a dummy database. I obviously don't want to use my real database to protect the privacy of my relationships and my own calendar of activities, both personal and business. So I'm able to do just about anything with this database to demonstrate to you how you can apply it in your lives. So what is an orbit? Let's start there. An orbit, by definition, apart from the celestial, is a person's sphere of resource and influence. And I trust that every one of you wants to improve and keep strong and healthy your resources and your influence that you have within all of the networks that we are all part of, if you think about that. And so it can be anything. It could be your fitness club, buddies. It could be your poker club. It could be your customers, of course. It could be your prospects. It could be certain types of strategic alliances. It could be your investors. It could be your board of directors. It could be cities where you have an aggregation of people in a particular city if you travel there. For instance, I travel to Chicago and Silicon Valley quite a lot, and so I have orbits for Silicon Valley and everybody in Silicon Valley that I know, regardless of what industry they're in, that being media or customer or strategic alliance, as well as everybody in Chicago that I know. And a person can be in, and this is very important for you to understand, unlimited orbits. So if we take Chuck, for example, I'll use Chuck as my example here. You know, he might be in 3 of my 63 orbits. He could be in my customer orbit, he could be in my media orbit, and he could be in my, golf buddies orbit. And every orbit is a focus, if you think about it. So when I go to my customer orbit, I'm not thinking about golf or poker or something else, fitness club. I'm thinking about customer-focused content. And it's now what I'm able to do with that orbit that enables me to be very productive in the same 24/7 constraint that every other human being lives by. And, if you think that everybody is in sales, regardless of what you do, what you are is a salesperson, because you're trying to achieve and further penetrate market potential and opportunities for yourself and or your company. That means you all have competition. So if everybody sells, selling is a numbers game. Therefore, it's important to get as much done in 24/7 as you can. And if you can get a lot more done than your competitors, you will be more successful by default. So with an orbit, I'm able to send group emails, for example. The nice thing about it is everybody in that orbit gets an email as if they were the only one that got it. So therefore, it's very personal. If I send an email to, let's say, everybody in my media orbit, and Chuck is in my media orbit, and I'm just going to pick a number, 273 people around the world that are in my media orbit. When Chuck gets that email from me, he's going to think I sent it just to him. In fact, that same email went to 272 other people, and simultaneously when I hit send, it will archive in every one of their profiles, their log files, if you will, that an email was sent to them on that date. I literally know every transaction I've done with every individual in my VIPOrbit database as they're spread across my multiple orbits. Every call, every meeting, every to-do. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of the power of what you're going to see a little bit of as we get started here. So let's begin to familiarize you with the Mac version of VIPOrbit itself right now. So what you're looking at is the dashboard. The dashboard is customizable. And what is customizable of it is the pictures that you see, for example. We call them tiles. And what you're able to do is add people, for example, that you might be meeting with today, or people that you might want to just track information about. So if you notice Seth Lotson here in the upper left-hand corner, it is displaying his most recent tweet. Now, even if you don't follow him, if you know his Twitter name and you typed it in his Twitter field in his record, it will monitor his social stream. And if I go to his record, which we'll do in a little bit here, you'll see every tweet he has put out in chronological sequence, most recent through the oldest. So this is just enabling me to be aware of what is important to him, because meaningful business comes from meaningful relationships. And real relationships are you-focused, not me-focused. I do like to say, somewhat provocatively, that social media ought to be called social me, because it's all about me. How many friends do I have? How many followers do I have? How many people are watching my YouTube video? Blah, blah, blah. Whereas relationship management is about you and it's private. Social media is public. All my competition is enabled to see the same information that you've put out there that I'm seeing. Whereas relationship management with a focus on you as opposed to me is private. But this gives me some insight into what's on your top of mind. So this is customizable, and if I wanted to add some more people to it, or an orbit itself, I hit the plus sign. And notice that it defaults by bringing up various people that I could tag, and they will appear in the dashboard as an additional title. If I want to put an orbit on my dashboard, let's say I want to keep my customers right there on the dashboard, I select customers and then add to dashboard. And now on the dashboard, I've just added my customers. And if I click on that, here is a list of every one of my customers. And it's here that I can then send, for example, a group email to everybody in that orbit, perhaps announcing a new, Black Friday price special, for example, or some new update to the product line that we are now carrying that you might be interested in knowing about. Whatever. It could be just wishing you a happy holiday season, but it's an ability to communicate with everybody as an individual, but en masse. And that's why I'm able to get a lot more done in a particular day. Now, notice on the left hand, it defaulted to the nav bar, the navigation bar, because I selected an orbit. So you see that my orbit icon is now highlighted. If I want to go look at my contacts in my database, here is everybody in my database. Now what I really want to do is click on the orbit icon up here at the top, and what it gives me is what I call the 3-column window view, which is the most efficient screen throughout your normal use of VIPOrbit. So let me just stroll through it a little bit here. So right now I am by default in my entire orbit called All Contacts, which is comprised of 534 people. But if I want to go look at my customers, notice that this window changed, and now I'm only looking at customers, and further than that, I'm looking at individual customers within that orbit. So I'm actually strolling, and I purposely use that word, through particular people in particular orbits. Now, let's say, for example, I want to include Zachary in some additional orbits, and there are no limits to how many orbits you can have, whether that be 60 or 600, it doesn't matter. You can have as many as is pertinent for you to delineate how you want to categorize people so that you can do productive things with them. But I can tell by looking at Zachary's profile here what orbits he presently is in. So he's in customers, graduations, vendors, and weddings. Perhaps I'm an event planner. That's what this database is pretty much designed to portray. So throughout this demonstration, let's presume I am an event planner, and I do weddings and graduations and special events, etc. I need to know who vendors are, etc., etc. And I want to move Zachary into a new orbit that he's not presently in, called conferences. Maybe I keep track of people that I encounter at conferences, so in my mind, when I'm trying to think of somebody or think of everybody that I met associated with a particular orbit, they're going to be there. And so it's a way to avoid letting anybody or anything slip through the cracks. So I'm literally holding my thumb down on my keypad, and I'm now going to drag Zachary into conferences. And notice that conferences just incremented by 1, and it added him to another orbit down here. So presently he is in 5 orbits. It's as easy as dragging and dropping people to populate them into various orbits. There are other ways to put people in orbits, but that is a very simple, elegant, and I would even propose fun way to do it. Just drag him into it because I thought of it spur of the moment, and he belongs there anyway, and I want him associated with that orbit, and I don't want to forget him when I go to that orbit to do something with it. All right. Notice also that I have an item called VIP links. What this is it gives me greater insight into each of my contacts' personal networks that they enjoy. So I obviously know in one degree or another everybody in my database. I put them there, all 534 contacts. But what I don't know amongst them is who knows who. And it's not just each of us toward each other that I want to have in my network. I want to understand your networks and what further areas I'm able to penetrate and understand and be more knowledgeable about for what assistance that provides me in having a more effective relationship with everyone, as well as how to further gain momentum and penetration into new opportunities from a relationship standpoint, primarily business, because we all have a livelihood to make, but business can also come from just relationships that began as friends, and friends can refer me to other people that could become, business relationships. So in my mind, I don't really care whether it's personal or business. A relationship has a lot of potential. In fact, it has infinite potential based on what you do with it. And VIPOrbit is a means by which you can do more with your network of these individual relationships. So back to VIP links. Let's say I just discovered that Zachary knows some other people in the database. So I'm going to add some other contacts here that I know, but I didn't know until a moment ago that he also knew them. So I'm just going to say, well, I know he knows Ed Elkhorn and he knows Cloud. And so I click those two. Now, if I want to go to a specific orbit, if I have a lot of orbits, 50, 100 orbits, I can click here and say, also, I know that he knows a lot of people in the graduations orbit. So go to the graduations orbit, which I'm now in. And these are the members of the graduation orbit. And Cloud also is already in that orbit, but I also learned that he knows Vanessa and Pete. So I click on them and I say done when I'm completely done. And I've just added those extra people to his profile so that when I go to his profile, perhaps I'm going to begin a call with him in a moment, or I'm going to meet with him later today. And I just want to have a better understanding of, his network, which I might be able to, utilize more beneficially in the meeting or discussion with him. So as I scroll across the orbits, the VIP links that I've attached to him, notice that it does give me a little bit of information about them. And if I want to, I can click on each of them right now and look in their profiles, and his name would be listed under their VIP link. So I have an instant 360-degree view right here of who knows who amongst the members of all of the orbits in my VIPOrbit database. That's why we show these two line items at the top, because they're very practical and useful on a day-to-day basis. They're top-of-mind things that you want to remember. Now, moving further down in his profile, notice that we have 4 tabs. So this is the Details tab. And it doesn't look like there's very much here, but the reason I am showing it to you is because I want you to see that we only display fields that have data in them. There are a whole lot more fields here that I could add data to. For example, I'm going to go into edit mode, and these are all of the fields that you could populate to build his dossier, his profile, if you will. So let's say that I just learned his Twitter name, and so I'm going to come here to the social window, and I'm going to type in or select Twitter. And I'm going to use my own Twitter name in this case here and say it's Mike Muhney. And so I've just now, created that, and I can go in and put, his Facebook name if we're friends on Facebook, etc. But I just learned that that's his Twitter name. I want to monitor his Twitter feed to see what he's always thinking, and so I selected it. These are user fields. I have 14 user fields that you can customize based on what you do in your job, in your life, that you want to additionally capture. So in this case, as an event planner, maybe I want to have a field called wedding date, or the number of tables, needed, the number of chairs needed, how many linens are needed, and the number of guests, etc. In my own real database, I have user fields like personal. And what I mean by that is something uniquely personal about that individual that I always want to remember. For example, let's say that Zachary, in this case, won a gold medal in swimming at the last U.S. Olympics. Well, that's something I want to remember. He's an Olympic gold medal winner. It's a topic of discussion. It's a point of interest. It certainly is something that he can talk elegantly and eloquently about, presumably. And people do like to talk about themselves, and these are the kind of things that will trigger in my own mind a remembrance and ability to get him to talk in that camaraderie that I want to build initially and maintain throughout our relationship.
Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use the discount code MacVoices11. Let's talk about Squarespace's many benefits. Wow, there are so many. I hardly know where to begin. Perhaps at the beginning? You can try Squarespace free for 14 days. Once you sign up, you start with one of Squarespace's many templates for business, photographers, bloggers, and other disciplines. But that's where your imagination takes over, because those templates can be customized in every fashion with drag and drop simplicity. Then start adding photos. But don't worry about scaling or sizing them to fit. Squarespace takes care of that, making sure they look great right where you put them. Of course, there are those hundreds of millions of mobile devices that your site might show up on. No worries. Squarespace not only optimizes your site for pretty much every possible device, but also your photos, all automatically. It's like magic. Hey, it might just be magic. Now, get your social media accounts connected. Again, everything built in and easy. It takes minutes rather than hours. And time is money. Speaking of money, if you have something to sell, Squarespace recently added e-commerce to their platform, so it is easy to set up shop and sell things. Squarespace provides the site and the platform. You have to provide the things. There's lots more, but that should get you started thinking that your old site is old, tired, worn out. You need something new. So go to squarespace.com right now and get that 14-day free trial. Then, pick a plan that suits you. Plans start at just $8 per month, and if you sign up for a year, you get a free domain name. Then, to save even more, use the offer code MacVoices11 and take 10% off whatever plan you've selected. That's 10% off your brand new website with the offer code MacVoices11. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this edition of MacVoices.
So 14 user-definable fields that you have right here. I'm going to hit save these fields, and I'm done. And you'll see now that there is a new item portrayed in his profile showing his Twitter name. So when I go to the social feed, and I haven't set up on Twitter yet. I apologize. Once I authorize Twitter to enable VIPOrbit to scan it and monitor it, then this would show the entire social stream of his tweets on Twitter simply by coming to this tab. And it would be a long list, and I could go to a hyperlinked article, for example, if he directed people to some hyperlink. The log file shows everything that I've done with him, every call, meeting, to-do, every log file, miscellaneous note. Everything that was done, most recent through the oldest, is portrayed here. So I can go back in time and with unlimited scrolling. Activities is where I schedule future calls, meetings, and to-dos with him, or him as a member of many other people that I'm going to have a conference call with or a group meeting with. And if they are scheduled with other people, such as you're seeing here, so I've got a call scheduled on March 4th, 2014, not only with Zach, but also with Bonnie. I obviously have a meeting with a bunch of people on March 5th of next year, as well as March 10th. I've got a call just with Zach coming up on March 22nd. So I have all of the activities that I have scheduled with him, most imminent, out beyond that, portrayed in the activities field. And by coming here and clicking on it, I can take a further look at it, I can edit it, etc. So I have the ability to manage my tasks, my to-dos, whatever you wish to call them, that are associated with people. And let me make a comment right here about why is it important to attach all of your activities with these members of your VIPOrbit database. The reason is simple: recall. In other words, if you use a calendar like iCal, that information is just a blob. It has no smart intelligence to it. It has no aggregation. It has no integration with anything. It is simply a blob of information for a particular day and time and type of event. And therefore, when you, in any relationship, have ongoing activities, there's no accumulation of them. in one clean file, so to speak. Here, by scheduling activities with an individual, when I complete that activity, it then goes into their log file automatically, such that when I will go to their log file and look back in time as to what I've done with them previously, I can recall this and remember, oh yeah, it was a year ago that we agreed to, these terms as opposed to the new terms you're proposing today. What is the cause for the difference? I mean, your past activities contain useful information that via VIPOrbit's log, automatic logging, once you complete an activity, enables you to have that detail, instant recall, on-demand, photographic memory, executive assistant-like. Okay, so that's part of the value of why you want to attach activities to people. So you've got the benefit with logs looking in the past of what you've done, and the ability to schedule things via activities looking out to the future with every member of your database. If I want to add an activity, by the way, I would hit the plus sign here, and I would add a new activity. Let's say it's a meeting, and what's the meeting in regard to? And what I want to show you here is right now there's a blank window, but you literally can create items that you do all the time. And most of us in our day-to-day lives have predictability and repeatability. In other words, I have business lunches. I follow up with people to see how they're coming along with VIPOrbit. I just touch base with them. Well, rather than type those in all the time, I can literally customize and create a list based on every field in VIPOrbit, such that I just select items in that list. So this is a brand new, database prepared for this demo, and I haven't created any lists yet. So let's just say I just want to stay in touch. Just want to stay in touch. And that's what I select, and I'm going to add that to the pick list, as we call it. And I can continue to add unlimited items in a list, and I just would click on them on the Mac version or tap on them in the iPhone and iPad version to select them, and it will select everyone that I've tapped, just as an FYI. If I want to add additional context to this, that this is a group call, for example, in this case, a group meeting, I also want to include Stacy in this. And let's say Lisa, we're going to have, the four of us are going to get together for lunch. So there are the participants in this meeting. And I want to repeat this every week for, the next few weeks, let's say through the end of the month, because we're going to, try to capitalize on the remainder of the year to optimize our sales and sales results for calendar year purposes. So that's how I've just set a new activity right in front of you as you're looking at it right here. So now that I've added that to Zach's calendar, so to speak, and by the way, if I want to send him an email, I would tap on an email. If I do follow him on Twitter and he follows me, therefore the ability to send a direct message between each of us, I would select Twitter here and then write him a direct message tweet that he would receive as a tweet text message, as you're familiar with them, I trust, and it would log automatically in his log file that I did send him that tweet, by the way. If I am a friend with him on Facebook, and we obviously have given each other permission via our mutual friendship, I can go to his Facebook page and post things on his wall and read what's on his wall right from here without leaving VIPOrbit. But let's go take a look at the calendar now. Sorry, I moved this off the screen a little bit. So let's look at my calendar. So here are activities scheduled for today. And I can have all-day activities. If I do, they're simply at the top of the list. As you see here, let's go to December. Not much going on other than the meeting that I just scheduled in front of you for the next 4 weeks to optimize our sales results for this year. And if I go into 2014, let's go to March, there should be a lot more, et cetera, et cetera. So I have the ability to, monitor my calendar with everybody that I have anything going on with. And by the way, I also have drag and drop capabilities. So if I want to move this item down to that date, I can. And simply by clicking on it, I can take a look at it. So it has to do with Ed Elkhorn, and I can delete the activity or complete it here or edit it if I need to. So if I need to edit it and add 1 or 2 more people, I can do it right here. So full drag and drop calendar monitoring capability. If I look at my week view, here is what the week would look like. And if I want to look at my day view, what a day would look like. So we're looking at everything scheduled for that particular day that I'm showing, or days near it if there isn't anything on that particular day. So on March 1st, Saturday, I don't have anything scheduled in this demo database, but beginning on Monday, March 3rd, there's already a couple of items, and then continuing on the rest of that week. So full calendaring capabilities. I really don't want to get into any more with calendars because I presume you understand calendars. If I do want to filter, though, and just look at particular types of events coming up on my month, week, or day calendar, I can. So if I want to see just meetings I'm having in a particular month, so let me go back to the this month of March 2014, and all I want to look at are meetings. I can filter just a view of nothing but meetings. I'm going to go back to all activities, etc. So that's just enough of the calendar to show you how that functions. Let's go back to the context window. And I was earlier on Zach, and now I'm with Bonnie, and you see that there's different information, for Bonnie. So just want you to see that as I filter through here, the items of information on each of their windows and profiles changes. Let's get down to somebody that doesn't have much there. There's some changes of information. So based on what fields have data, that information changes right along with you. Okay, so let's go back to the file capability. So I've kind of given you a day in the life, if you will, of what a profile looks like, how to populate them in some orbits. In fact, in a moment, I'll create an orbit to show you how easily that's done and populating that. But let's talk at the beginning now. So you've just downloaded VIPOrbit for the Mac version. What do you do next? Well, first of all, on our website, by the way, we have a free ebook that is a user manual that you can download and print out that has all the screenshots and call-outs to explain literally everything about the product. But presumably what you would select would be import, because you don't want to type all of this information in. So we provide you in the Mac version 6 import sources that you're looking at. Obviously, the Apple contacts that are on your device already, Skype, which are meaningful because Skype are real relationships. By that, I mean that you have to send an invite to somebody, they have to accept it so that the two of you can talk or video conference via Skype so you know them and they know you. Facebook, I get a lot of Facebook want to be my friends, but I don't know them and I never will. They just want to be my friend for whatever reason. So in my case, I would not want to import Facebook, although if I did, because some of them are truly friends, I could go to the selection of Facebook. It would show me everybody in Facebook, and I can individually tag people that I want to import at the exclusion of those that I don't. So you do have that capability as well. I can import Twitter. Can't imagine why most people would do that, because Twitter, for the most part, are people that you truly never will know. They just happen to follow you. But if you want to, you can. LinkedIn, maybe a little bit more meaningful, but even LinkedIn, a lot of people might send you a request to be linked to you, but you don't know them and you never will, and you never hear from them again. So you have to make a choice. Do you want them in your VIPOrbit database or not? But again, since you can individually tag, it's up to you how you use that if you want to as an import source. And Google contacts. Now, what you can also do here is you literally could import from every one of those items, tag people you do or don't want to have finally brought into Populate VIPOrbit. But once you do, you might encounter duplicates. And one of the nicest and most powerful aspects of VIPOrbit Mac version, since Mac is what I call the John Deere heavy lifter, is the ability to merge. So once you've imported, and I'm not going to take time to import, importing is importing, what I'm going to want to probably select then, let me get out of this window, is merge. So it will, if I select merge, it would literally look at the entire list of everybody that was imported and identify people that are duplicates. And as it did here, there are actually a few, and it will show them to me. And I have the ability to merge every one of their multiple records. So here I'm on Ginger Coolidge. One of her import sources had a picture that she uses. She's a realtor, by the way, and so no surprise she has a realtor icon. And as far as this import from Facebook, she does not have a photo on Facebook. So it does also identify where this particular information was sourced from. And what I can do here is go through and make any changes that I may need to. And once I then proceed, it will merge everything into one clean record. So think about that. Think about finally putting everybody together that you know, and I'm talking about everybody being an individual. Everything you know about that individual from multiple sources as they most likely presently exist into a nice, clean, single folder from which you now continue on your relationship with them. That's not to say you can't continue to go to their Facebook page and post something on their wall. Of course you can. But what you want to remember, what you've done with that individual, the legacy of your relationship, how valuable that can be not only today, but perhaps even more importantly as time goes on, especially when we come out later with our shared capability with others to be able to share the legacy of relationships with people. So I'm giving you a little bit of heads up on what to expect next year. So keeping a legacy of everything that constitutes the extent, the quality and depth and breadth of your relationship with each individual is beneficial to you today, to you in the future. It's beneficial to that person that is the relationship because of how on top of the game you are in the remembrance and intensity and trust that's been established because of that, as well as later being able to be shared with them. So the merge capability of VIPOrbit is very powerful. Now, if you happen to use the iPhone and or iPad version of VIPOrbit, incidentally, now from there, this would sync down to those devices. On the iPhone version, you can only import from the built-in Apple contacts list on the phone. That's it. The phone is not as powerful a device as is the iPad, which itself is not as powerful as the Mac. So the Mac is the heavy lifter, just as an FYI. So if you are a Mac user and you wish to use VIPOrbit across your multiple Apple devices, I would recommend you do the importing using Mac because it can come from 6 sources as opposed to only 1 on the iPhone and 5 on the iPad. The iPad presently doesn't have import capability with Skype. So again, the Mac is the heavy lifter, and then once it merges, which the other devices do not have the capability of, by the way, once it merges in the Mac and then syncs down to the iPhone and iPad devices that you may also have, you now have one clean record per individual that is an aggregate of everything you know about them. And now, regardless of which device you put data in, a record with, whether that be iPhone or iPad, it will sync to the other devices. So from that point on, beginning with the merge capability and then syncing with Mac, you're good to go in the most efficient, effective, and organized fashion possible. All right. Going through some of the other capabilities here, just to give you a sense of it, managed fields and pick lists. I just want you to understand, again, how easily you can create your user fields and then designate them as a type of field. So let's say on user field 7, I want to create that user field that I do use in my real database called personal. I have a little bit of an issue here. I apologize. I cannot make a change on this demo database, so it must be a locked list because it's a demo database. But this is where you would type in the field name, and then you see in this case it has a window called or field type designated as pick list, which means when I go to that field, I can populate a window of the things that I would want to be resident so that I don't have to continue to type them. All right, and then the pick lists themselves. Here are the various pick lists. So I have activity outcome, that being call, meeting, and to-do outcomes. I have call, meeting, and to-do regardings. Why do you have meetings? Remember the one I just did earlier for calls in front of you? I typed in touch base. Well, there is the first evidence of it, and I can continue to add information. So if I want to add, dinner, I want to call to schedule a dinner with you. I can, and now I have dinner. And if I also want to call you to have a status update, I would type it in here and add that item. And by the way, this window can be unlimited, and you'll have a scroll bar that will then appear, but you can also reposition things where you want them to be in the list. So if status update, you want to be at the top or grouped along with some other items if you have a long list, simply click on it and hold it and drag and drop it to where you want it to be in that list. The log regarding and the log outcome are retrospective. So for example, let's say I met you at a conference 3 days ago. I got your business card. I even maybe wrote some notes on it. I finally get to come to VIPOrbit. I've got to enter you as a new contact, but the meeting occurred 3 days ago. And if I want to be correct on the legacy of activities, I would go to log and designate it as a meeting that we had 3 days ago with the date of 3 days ago. So that's what a log is. So the outcome is after the fact. Activities are future. So they have a different tense, past, present tense kind of a thing to them, presumably. All right, so that's the sense of how you create pick lists and, of course, the fields. Let's go back to one other thing, and I'm going to stop because there's much more that I could talk about here, but do not have the benefit of time with you. I want to actually go to orbits. Let me cancel this. I want to go to the orbits tab, and I want to add a new orbit. So let's create an orbit. All right, so here's an orbit, and we'll call it, well, what can we call it? Let's call it, we'll call it Chicago. I'll just use my old example. If I travel to Chicago a lot, or I have a lot of events that I conduct in the Chicago area, why not keep a list of everybody I know in Chicago, just so I know of everybody. I can give it a description. I don't need to. I know why, to me, as the single user, what Chicago is. But I can also give it a color. So let's color Chicago blue. Obviously, you can intensify it just so you can customize it. And I'm done with creating the orbit and giving it a color, etc. If I want to now populate it with certain people, I don't have to. I can just create the orbit, and at present it would be 0. But I can't populate it right now. It automatically opens up my entire database. And let's say I want to put Stacy's in Chicago. I know that these people show Texas, so excuse me for this demo, but I'm just randomly selecting people for purposes of population here. So I'm selecting these people, that I'm looking at from my entire database. I can go again, come here and go to a specific orbit and say, well, I have a lot of people in Chicago that I know are in my graduations orbit. It's an easier, quicker list to go through. So I'll come here and select Deborah and Lucille and Gregory, and on until I finally hit done. And I now have an orbit called Chicago comprised of 7 people. I can schedule a group activity with everybody in that orbit. So if it's an orbit specific to, let's say, a project team, and I want to schedule a staff status meeting update on a weekly basis with every member of this orbit, I can do so right here. So I can do group activity capability with an orbit, just as an FYI. This is where I could also then send an email to everybody in that orbit, so which we've already covered earlier. So that's all it takes to create an orbit. And if I come back here to contacts, again, I can take a look at them and scroll through them, so to speak, to see what information I have on them by double-clicking. So there I'm on Gregory's profile from his contact list. All right, the last thing I want to cover is reports. because reports can obviously be very helpful to you. Built into VIPOrbit are the following reports: an orbit list. Again, I personally do have 63 orbits, and sometimes I forget all the orbits I have, and if I just want to have a memory of them for purposes of whatever, I can print out the list of what they were as of a date and time, because I do add and delete orbits from time to time. Some of my orbits are temporary. So if I'm going to have sponsor a golf tournament, for example, I might do a search, which I won't do here, but I could do a search on everybody that likes to play golf. If one of my user fields, which is the case in my real database, is designated as hobbies, and golf is a hobby to most people, I want to find everybody that likes golf. Why? Because I'm going to sponsor a golf tournament, and once I find them, I can literally create a new orbit, send them an invite to the golf tournament that I'm sponsoring. It will automatically go out to each of them in that orbit as an individual, so they think they've gotten a personal invite to that tournament I'm sponsoring. And again, will automatically document and archive in each of their profile log files that they were sent an invite to this golf tournament that I'm sponsoring. And when that tournament is done, I can delete that orbit. It no longer is necessary. It was useful for a period of time, but no longer is. So I can delete it, but in the legacy of everything I've done with an individual, the fact that they were at one time a member of that orbit called golf tournament, it helps me remember that, oh yeah, they were there, or I did send them that email, etc., etc. So even with an orbit that no longer exists, you will know who was in it and whatever they were called at that point in time, according to the legacy of the relationship. Contact details: if you want to go to meet with somebody, you don't want to open up your device, you want to have this as a printout, so you have the same information in front of you on paper, which you could use to add new notes, etc., and then come back to VIPOrbit to update their record with. Print out a contact detail report for everybody you're going to meet with, or those special people that you think would be discourteous to have your device opened up in front of, but you know it would be valuable to them, for them to see you taking notes about what they're saying, because now they know you're paying attention and you're not going to forget. Contacts list is just everybody in your database completed activities report. This is really a useful report, and let's paint a different scenario here, and the scenarios are infinite. Let's say that you're being deposed by a lawyer in a case, and you're being asked to document what you did in a 2-week period of time this past February. Maybe it was February of last year. Obviously, it's pertinent to how long you've been using VIPOrbit that you can go back to VIPOrbit with, but let's presume you've had it since January of this year. So you could go back to February of this year, designate to the 2-week period, the from and to right here, period that you want to have it go find, and print out everything you did, every call, every meeting, every to-do, every note that was added, etc., in anybody's profile in that date range. And by doing so, then print out that report. The whole time to really do this and to print out the report is probably going to take less than 1 minute to have 100% recall on what you did for during 2 weeks in February. Most of us can't even remember everything we did yesterday. So this can prove to be very valuable to you as a report. So I'm going to stop here. Okay, nobody's asked any questions. So I just want to thank you for your time for this brief overview of VIPOrbit Mac version. I want to wish you a happy holiday season, and thanks very much for attending. Have a good day.
Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, app.net, Google+, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date with all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at MacVoices.com/newsletter. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com.